Welcome to ADHD Friendly. I'm Patty Blinderman. I am your host and the creator of the ADHD Friendly membership community. Check it out at ADHDfriendly.com, where everything we do is designed to tilt the playing field in favor of ADHD brains. So this is episode 107.
Wow.
I know. I'm going to start as I always do with a celebration, and it's related to my NAMI walks. NAMI. I always say NAMI walks that I did last month in October. And then I have an ADHD friendly tip related to bucket lists, Becca. I know. And then my topic this week, imposter syndrome. This is a really common thing for those of us with ADHD. So I'm going to break down what it is, what it looks like, and share some strategies to help you if you have a bit of that imposter syndrome going on. Well, let's start as we do with a celebration. So I did the NAMI walks in October, and I shared before that I designed a shirt because we made Team ADHD Friendly for the walk. It was a beautiful, beautiful fall October day, which was it just made me so happy. And my celebration is, and I'm trying to figure out how to share this because I'm a little uncomfortable sharing it because it was a hard decision to make. And I told you we changed the morning of the walk.
Yes.
Because what I realized was where I signed up to do the walk, because I'm not from Chicago, so I'm not familiar where places are, was literally on the opposite end of Chicago from where I am. And it was going to take about an hour and a half to get there with all of the road construction that's going on right now.
Right.
And if we took mass transit, which was our preferred once we realized where it was, so we wouldn't have to navigate all of that, it was going to be $150. And I'm not kidding. So I was like, oh no. And there wasn't really time to navigate this with the time the walk started. So I remembered there was another walk that was closer to me, but I just decided to sign up for the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and I realized because it's a free walk and it's really about raising awareness, you could sign up even the morning of, and it didn't, cost additional. Our t-shirts that we all qualified for were down at the other walk that we registered for. But I was like, you know what? The big picture is getting out there and walking to raise awareness for mental illness. So we shifted, and this is like a lot of brains who aren't very flexible, including me. So like it was a difficult thing to navigate, but we all did it. We all got there. We did the walk, and it was a great time. So my celebration is that I pivoted at the last moment when I realized it just wasn't going to work. It was just too difficult. And I was getting overwhelmed with my feeling of, the obligation of, I registered us. We have to go walk. People, are supporting us to walk. I have to go participate. And then what I had to let go of is the expectation of walking the exact location that I signed up for and letting myself walk where it worked for us to walk and still, about raising that awareness. So prioritize attending, and we got it done. And next year I'm signing up for the closer one. Now that I know where the other one is, I'm like, oh my word. It was just one of those not good with directions and where things are.
Same here, but hey, you guys made it.
We made it work. We all wore our t-shirts. It was a fun time. All right. So now I have my ADHD friendly tip for this week. And it's related to a bucket list. Do you have a bucket list, Becca?
I don't, but I should start one.
Becca's probably okay. She's not even thinking about a bucket list yet.
Nothing on my radar.
Well, Arthur C. Brooks, who teaches a happiness course at Harvard University, recommends not just having a bucket list, but taking 3 things off of it. And so this is what he said. I'm going to quote Arthur here. He said, instead of aspiring to add more things to your life, think about how you can aspire to take things away. And what he says is, if you remove 3 things, it can take the pressure off and actually boost your happiness. Ooh. So I've got the 4 steps he recommends, because he recommends taking 3 things off, but he kind of comes in a back doorway and recommends adding 3 things on. So I'm going to share what this looks like. Ooh. So these are his 4 steps. Number 1, write out your bucket list. He said, focus on your biggest goals and dreams for your bucket list. I have a bucket list. I thought it was in my trusty personal owner's manual. Not. So my step 1 is find my bucket list. But if you already have yours and knew where it is, great. If not, we're going to write it. So write your bucket list. Number 2, rank each item on your list from most to least important. I
Ooh.
thought that one was really interesting because I know I can kind of visually remember my list, even though I can't find it. It is just a list. Lots of places I want to go, things I want to do, mostly experiences that are on there. And so he says, when you're prioritizing them from most important to least important, to ask yourself this question. He says, are these things truly contributing to my happiness? Or could I be happier if I stopped pursuing them and focused instead on things I already enjoy in my life?
Oh.
Right? Because a lot of times we might have things on there that are about maybe things like I want a boat or I want a vacation home or I don't know, just, just stuff. I know most of mine were
Like
experiences,
places.
like doing things with different family members or friends or going to different locations I've not been. But I'm sure there are a few things on there. If I go back and look, like I wouldn't say that there's not, but I can't find it, so I don't know.
It's a mystery.
It's true. I'll follow up if I do find the original list. Okay, so that was step 2, rank them. Step number 3, remove the 3 lowest ranked things. So now this step is easy because you've already decided most important to least important, take the bottom 3 off your list and replace them with 3 things that you've already experienced or already appreciate having. So this is where you're going from that kind of pressure to do and shifting it to happiness for having done it and having the experience and the memory from it. So I really like that step and that idea a lot, which is why when I read this, I was like, ooh, this has got to be a tip because this feels very ADHD friendly. And then his 4th step is just revisit it once a year. And so, my strategy there is what prompt you need to come back to it every year. If you do, kind of January lists might be a good time at the beginning of a new year, maybe at the end of the year in December. Could be, start of the school year if that works for you, your birthday every year, whatever your year time period will look like. Schedule a reminder in your calendar app so it's popping up to remind you, do something. I would say, what prompt will you need to remind you? And then I'm going to end with his quote here. He says, as you refine your list, you will slowly increase the balance of your haves over your wants and work on increasing gratitude in your life. So your haves go up and your wants go down. So it's not about wanting, it's about appreciating what you have. So I really like that a lot. So there it is from Arthur C. Brooks from Harvard University. Thanks, Arthur.
Thanks, Arthur.
Nice tip. All right. Now, a quick commercial break. Hello, friends. I'm ADHD Friendly Girl. Are you overwhelmed, unmotivated, run down? Do you stop before you start? The answer to your challenges can be found at ADHD Friendly. ADHD Friendly is where we make the doing easier. Join ADHD Friendly today and start tilting the playing field in favor of your ADHD brain and start thriving. ADHDfriendly.com, where intention meets action. All right, we're back. It's fast. Always goes by so fast. Okay. Imposter syndrome. So everybody can experience imposter syndrome. This is not one of those you only find it with people that have ADHD brains, but people with ADHD do tend to have this much more frequently.
Okay.
So the definition I'm going to share is from the ADDRC, the ADD Research Center, I think. I really need to write these out. I write them out in shorthand and I'm like, oh, there's no way I'll forget what that means. And then I forget, but addrc.org. And they say imposter syndrome is a pattern where someone doubts their skills, talents, or achievements and fears being exposed as a fraud, and they attribute their success to luck or external factors rather than their own abilities.
Oh.
Right. So if something happens, like, yeah, but that was really just luck. That really had nothing to do with my skill or my talent or my strengths. Or, you know what? I don't know how I pulled that together. This is like how I experience it a lot. I won't remember, kind of like my bucket list, right? Like, I know I did that, but where is it? So I'll get in my head thinking, they're going to think, what a flake that she can't remember where she put something or what was on it or what I did when. I have lots of kind of blind spots. And they show up in different ways in different environments. And so I have a lot of that
Mhm.
experience. And those of us with ADHD brain wiring, because we have a lot of executive function challenges at times, we have a lot of evidence that, they don't always show up in the way that support us. And so we can feel very much like an imposter. And so
Okay.
imposter syndrome and ADHD, really, when we think about ADHD, individuals with ADHD do receive more negative feedback and criticism because of those impacts on executive functions. So when you think about time management, organization, planning, and prioritizing, we struggle in all of these areas. So we literally have self-doubt in our abilities, in our consistency, right? So I would say, maybe I can do it once, but can I do it over time consistently? That's a whole different thing, but we'll be judged because we did it once. And people will be like, well, I know you can do it. So what's the deal? And it's like, okay, that's not
That was a
literally,
one time.
that's not how my brain works. I remember I learned this when my kids, I didn't know anything about the way ADHD showed up very uniquely in individuals and how my kids were impacted.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, my thing was, as soon as you learn how to make your own lunch, good on you, go make your lunch. God, like,
Get it
okay,
done.
figure out what you want to make. I'll help you, like, when we're shopping, what do you want to pack for
Yeah.
lunch? But you're packing it. And what I found was my kids wouldn't eat they were just like, I won't be hungry. I'm gonna do it. And they literally wouldn't pack lunches, and they would go all day hungry. And I'd get notes, so-and-so didn't have a lunch today. I'm like, why did you take lunch?
Oh my God, I wasn't gonna be hungry.
Yeah, because again, our brains are so now, not now. They had just had breakfast and they couldn't imagine being hungry again. So they didn't make a lunch. And it was so interesting because I would get frustrated thinking, well, I know you know how to make it, so you'll figure out eventually. No, they actually
They weren't
didn't.
about it.
So it was a very interesting phenomenon, but it was one of those examples that when we think about what contributes to this, it is a lot of the direct impact on our executive functions that coincide with ADHD. So what this could look like, you might have negative self-talk.
Oh.
So, right. So like we don't do something and let's see overslept, like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just did that. I'm going to use, I really have worked on this. So it feels uncomfortable to even use this as an example because my brain's going, no, you don't do that. But you might say, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. Don't say that. But that's like, typical, like your brain will say something like that. Or I'm never going to get this right. I don't know why I keep thinking I can figure this out. Yeah. What's the point?
Right.
We might self-sabotage. So some
Oh.
behaviors that self-sabotage us could be we procrastinate until the last minute and, kind of throw something together to try to meet a deadline, but we just keep putting it off. Or we get into perfectionism where it's like, well, I'm going to wait for the perfect environment or the perfect set of conditions to get started. They can go hand in hand. Or we work on it to it's like, maybe you turn something into your boss and it's beautiful. And your boss is like, I just wanted you to slap something together in like 30 minutes and you spent like an entire day on this. And so it can like,
well, look at what he did.
right. But then we can get in our heads like
you dummy.
Why did I do that? And now they're mad at me. I made this beautiful thing, but they just wanted a simple chart.
Right.
And I like went and made graphics and got all sparkly and had a great time, maybe diving into all the creative side of it. We also can set unrealistic expectations, either on ourselves or on others. But here, I think we're talking more about ourselves. This can also look like social avoidance. So we might have that fear of being found out. So we might not want to, it's like, okay, I think of this as the George Costanza. This is just popping in my head. So I'm hoping I'm going to share this in a cohesive way that makes sense. In this, there's a Seinfeld episode where George learns like it's better to kind of leave the conference room on a high note. And so remember he said this joke and they all started laughing. He's like, that's it, I'm out. Like, and that resonates so much with me because it's like, okay, yes,
I did it. Leave
with that, positive impression, because what I know about me is if I stay longer, there's a really good chance I'm going to do something that I'm going to be like, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just go when you had the chance? You just left at the point where you were on that high. You wouldn't have said that thing that now that's what they're remembering. They don't remember the positive contribution. Now they're thinking of that last thing you said. So we could avoid that, afraid that we'll be exposed as a fraud, or we'll be afraid that we won't meet social expectations. And
Okay.
sometimes, especially for those of us that are verbal processors, it might be that we know we tend to get really excited about something and we lose the awareness that other people are looking at us like, okay, take a breath. No, you've been talking for 9 minutes. I would say 5 minutes.
Reel in.
And we're not recognizing that people are like, and we just keep going. It's like, but wait. I'm like, literally, I told you all the backstory. My husband's always like, don't preamble. Cause I'm like, let me give you the whole setup before I tell you the one little part that you need to know. So some social avoidance could show up in terms of imposter syndrome. So those are some of the challenges of what it can look like with ADHD. I want to share some strategies if this is an area that you recognize in yourself so that you have something maybe to play with. As always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind, just sharing some ideas to see if something might help you to move beyond where you are so you're thriving with ADHD. All right, strategy number 1, challenge that self-talk. As I mentioned when I first used that example, I have worked on this so much that I literally feel discomfort physically when I go to say something negative about myself. I'm not going to say I never slip up, but I never do it without being aware of it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty infrequent because I worked on this so much since really my coach training helped me immensely. And because I had to support my clients to recognize it, I can't not hear it.
Yeah.
But challenging it can be as simple as just noticing that it's happening. It can be like the first step, right? We have to raise our awareness before we can shift our behavior and create a new pattern. So one way to challenge that negative self-talk is by reminding yourself of your strengths and your accomplishments. Because remember, if we're tying it to imposter syndrome, we're judging ourselves through that lens of, you were just lucky, or it was just because, other people did pieces and yeah, you contributed a part, but it was really their stuff was more than what you contributed. It wasn't really about you. So challenging that with strength and accomplishments. My favorite way, as you know, is with a success journal.
Woohoo!
So Dr. Sharon Celine, I'm going to quote her, fabulous woman, says, and this is her quote, "You have strengths and challenges like everyone else. The problem is the struggle to hold on to your successes long enough to believe in your abilities and nurture a sense of inner pride." Good on you, Sharon. That's beautifully stated. So I invite you to check out episode 34 of ADHD Friendly, where I talk about how to capture a success. And I use examples and I literally go through the steps that I use to capture my successes. You can also visit ADHDfriendly.com, sign up for my free mini POM, and you will get a free success journal in that mini POM. So a couple of places just to do a little bit more digging and research. If it is sounding sparkly, but you need a little bit more inspiration, there's a couple of places to go to get you started. Okay, strategy number 2, set realistic goals and expectations. So let's say you have a really big project. Even if it's like, I'm going to organize the junk drawer. So maybe you break it down. I'm going to organize 1 tray in the junk drawer. But break it into smaller, more manageable steps. So if I back that up a little bit, maybe my goal is to organize the kitchen and get it to flow better. Maybe I start with the pantry. Maybe I start with the countertop, right? But not the entire kitchen, because that's probably not going to happen in one day, at least not in my kitchen. Yeah, there's too much. So break it down into steps so that they're manageable and actionable. So you can see like, okay, you know what? This is where I start. And then I can check that off and be done. And you've made progress and you didn't hold yourself to that unrealistic expectation that you're going to do it all. Strategy number 3, develop a support system. So whether it's friends, family members, colleagues, find people who have similar experience with some of these challenges, and maybe they can provide some tips or emotional support, because again, we're not alone. We feel like we're the only person that experiences this, and we're not. The other alternative could be joining a support group, or even if this is a huge challenge, something that's getting in your way in meaningful ways, maybe reaching out for professional support, whether it's a therapist or a doctor, to really get the support that you need to be able to navigate through imposter syndrome. And then the 4th strategy is to practice self-care. And so really prioritizing those activities that build you up So whether it's exercise, whether it's sleep, whether it's going to what I call like the big three foundations, making sure that you're eating healthy food, that you are exercising, that you're getting the sleep that you need. Those are all foundational self-care pieces. Maybe hobbies, right? So literally prioritizing some time to do the things that you enjoy so you are connecting with your strength. Because most likely if you have a hobby that you enjoy, it's something that's pulling on your natural strengths.
Yeah.
And that's a way to really lean into that self-care to combat imposter syndrome. Episode 7 of this podcast, really early on, if you go back and watch that, please, be kind. I talk about how to create a treat yourself menu. So whenever I talk about self-care, I think about self-care menus. So we remember the things that we can do to make it easier to tap into them, excuse me. So a treat yourself menu is a fun way to do that. So that's episode 7. If you, again, want to check that out and get some ideas to make it easier to prioritize self-care. All right. So that's it. As always, if you try any of the strategies here, would love to hear how they go for you, or if you have your own that you want to share. This is episode 107. If you would post in the comments for this episode, we all learn from each other. So please share what you learn. And then I want to just share what I am reading this week before I get into my quote, which I forgot to do last episode. I'm going to do it this time. Becca, I am doing this deep dive into Dave Grohl.
Oh, love
So
him.
I am not quite halfway done the book. It's if you're listening to this, it's The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music. So he is the front man for Foo Fighters.
Yes.
Or as I like to say, based on oh gosh, and I lost it. It's gone. I'm not gonna be able to say it. So I'm gonna let it go because I'm not gonna think of his name. But I have been following him on Instagram for a bit, and that's really interesting because that's kind of like my way into learning more about him. And I didn't even know he was the drummer for Nirvana.
Oh, I had no idea either.
So Nirvana, sorry, which is like, I'm sure, like, I'm so sorry, I just didn't know.
I didn't either.
I just knew him from Foo Fighters, and I was just like, what? So I was like, well, I gotta learn more about this. And what I love about what pulled me into wanting to read his book and learn more about him was he's just so nice.
He is a really
like
nice
he's been
guy.
out forever. He's like the same age as me. I think I'm like 6 months older than him.
Oh,
yeah, I know, pretty cool.
That is cool.
But he has this like genuine like kindness about him, and he just like is very generous with what he's been able to achieve. He, the clips of him having like a kid come up on stage and play the drums with him, like at a live concert. I mean, it's just really, really sweet. And he seems like a real family guy, which, I love, like really, really close with his kids. And so then I also got from my library, he did I think it's an eight episode documentary when they made the album Sonic Highways, and it's really long.
But very cool.
And I am loving it. So just wanted to share that this is kind of, what's sparkly right now for me, what I'm reading and what I'm watching. It's very, very enjoyable. And so on my walk this morning, Becca, listen to Nirvana.
Hey, I love Nirvana.
But like my husband loves Nirvana. I only I know apparently I know like a number of their songs. I don't know what they're called. So when I listened to them, I was like, oh, I know this song. I know this song. And so I was just totally off my walk, like rocking out. But it was really cool because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, she's on the drums right now. That's crazy. Like I never knew that was him. So I feel like I had this like weird, almost like fan, like I know him. I don't, but it felt like it. So it was really interesting dynamic. I was like, oh my gosh, like what a interesting phenomenon. Okay, all right, so back to my excellent advice for living. Wisdom I wished I'd known earlier from Kevin Kelly. Here is my excellent advice from Kevin Kelly today. Don't measure yourself. No, sorry, start over. Don't measure your life with someone else's ruler.
Ooh.
I thought that tied in really nicely with the whole imposter syndrome. So there you go. There's my tip. All right, quick recap. Shared the tip for taking 3 things off your bucket list to create a little bit more happiness, a little less pressure. Love that. Again, if you try that, post it in the comments. Would love to hear your experiences and your thoughts on that. And then we broke down imposter syndrome. Hopefully, again, tilting that playing field in favor of your brain. Next time, I'm going to be talking about who do you spend your time with? I know this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a while, so it's been on the list and I'm finally bringing it in. That's my intention next week to talk about that. And I'm going to kind of highlight, like the whole idea behind who you're spending your time with really does influence who you are becoming as a human being. So, kind of thinking about mindfully who you're choosing to spend your time with. So I love that idea. That's it for this episode. Again, episode 107. If you like this episode, some of the content resonates with you, or there's someone in your life you think could benefit, please subscribe, like, follow, whatever you do, pass it on. That's how other people find us. If you're new, welcome. So glad that you're here. And as always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. Check out ADHD Friendly for more resources at ADHDfriendly.com. Until next time, tally ho.